The time has come, and so has Carolina. Welcome back.
Wait, how did we get to the second palace?
Welcome back from magical Persona Land, Caro. How were the random demon encounters?
It's been a while, although apparently I haven't been gone for that long, game time-wise at least.
Well, yeah, there were quite a few parts of Between Palace fluff, though, not to mention some delves into Mementos. So, yeah, Mementos is a lot of jump cutting and fades past useless parts of the video, though, because there's not a whole lot to show in Mementos after you've established what it is. But yeah, here we are in the second palace, Madarame's palace, which takes the form of a really lavish art museum with the shadows as security guards. That is one thing I like about this game, is that the enemies that roam around the field, while they don't look like whatever monsters you'd be fighting, like in some RPGs, have different forms this time. In previous Persona games, they'd all just be sort of formless gobs of shadow, and their size or color would indicate what kind of threat they were, or how many enemies you'd be facing. And that's still true here, but they have appearances that are themed to the different locations. That you can jump to that other platform, but it's just a dead end. I think, like, in the casino, they're like really comically skinny bunny women. Like, their spines are the width of a spine, which is kind of disturbing.
So, Jessica Rabbit.
Jessica Rabbit dialed to 13.
Oh my.
Ooh.
Not even 11, 13.
That's so what, Spinal Tap 3?
But anyway, yeah, it wouldn't be much of a Phantom Thief story if we didn't have a museum heist with a skylight entrance. That's almost mandatory for this genre.
And in the next window over, you see Selena Kyle walk in.
Well, we already have our own Catwoman, so we don't need her. Unlike the first delves into the first palace, there are actually pieces of pottery around this area that you can break to get some loot, so that you can sell that off before you go back into the palace again. Which is handy, because the moment a palace mission officially starts and you have free reign over your day-to-day activities again, is the moment the weapon shop stocks new items. Why they couldn't do that before you go into the next palace, so you had time to deal with that stuff before starting, I don't know, but there it is. You have to buy that stuff after you start the palace. It's just how the game is structured. Anyway, yeah, these wavy motion paintings are sadly not Hogwarts paintings. They are paintings of Madarame's past pupils. He's apparently had a lot of them, and they've all suffered more or less the same fate, although how badly off they end up being after the fact varies from person to person. You know, Nakanohara just ended up as an emotionally stunted stalker for a little while, but some of them
sadly,
actually...
these distorted paintings also don't transport us into Mario 64 levels. Joker just walks, Joker just jumps into one.
Wait to go!
All things considered, Nakanohara got off easy. He was able to start his life anew with a new career, and his real problem was just that he wasn't handling it well, which is understandable, although he still kind of got what was coming to him with what he was doing. The some of the other students, I think, wind up as homeless people that you can talk to around the town.
Talk about literal starving artists.
I think you might run into those people in relation to another situation. I'm not sure. Anyway, we can freely run around here, so I recommend you do that and grab all the pots. When you come back in here to start the dungeon properly, you see these sensor bars that are set up around there. Those will be laser walls, and you can't walk straight through them, and you gotta time your way through them, or use an action command to slide under. Persona 5 is one of those RPGs that tries to make itself feel more dynamic with automated jumping or sliding commands for certain places, which I wasn't a big fan of in Final Fantasy XIII, and I'm not a big fan of it here. But, it is what it is. Technically, it's not any worse than just walking around everywhere, so I can't really complain. Hi, Mr. Bowlcut. It's like a more boring version of Rock Lee.
Well, if it isn't a Japanese Mo Howard.
uh,
You do know why it's actually called the bowl cut, though, because of Mo Howard, right?
Really?
is it?
Yeah.
I thought it was called the bowl cut because you took a literal bowl. And
That's
cut
what I
your hair
thought
with it.
too.
Well, yeah, that's what he did, which is why it became known as a bowl cut, but he was the one who did it in the first place.
Gotcha.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
There have been a few times when I've cut my hair manually, which let me tell you is a hell of a chore when you're trying to mimic the hairstyle of Leon S. Kennedy. And I actually did use a hat, kind of like a bowl, to get the back relatively even, although I always wind up having to ask someone else to trim it up for me afterward.
Yeah, my hair is always just a frizzy mess, so... Unfortunately, it's not a stylish frizzy mess like main character Kun here.
I just keep my hair short
Yeah.
in general. Less of a pain.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I wind up not being able to pull off short hair or long hair. It's kind of weird. Like, my hair just grows in this thick, kind of not altogether easy to tame way that doesn't play nicely with ordinary looking haircuts.
I always have people compliment my hair. It's one of my proudest features.
It is, though.
I've had people randomly complimenting my hair ever since I took the Leon haircut. It just happens at work all the time. I didn't expect it to happen at the Amazon warehouse, but it started happening there too. I'm uncomfortable with this attention.
So Lewis is the model of the group, I guess.
I wish. Unfortunately, I still have a bit of frizz going on that never quite lets my hair settle down quite as well as I want to. Why am I talking about hair? This is such a...
We're leaving Ted's hair out of this?
Ted is one step below Radical Soda.
And then there's John's hair.
Rip.
I was like, hey, an important document. Now, let's go check out the treasure chests first. Unfortunately, I don't have lockpicks, which means I'm going to be spending at least a day not going into the dungeon before I come back here, because I'm going to want to make a fresh batch of lockpicks before I come back. Fortunately, I think Palace 1 is actually the one with the most locked treasure chests in it, so you don't need very many before delving into each of the subsequent palaces. 2 or 3 should usually get you through the palace, unless you go through a Mementos session before coming back, in which case you'll probably need to make more.
Always good to have tons of lockpicks.
For some reason, they print half the map on one pamphlet and half the map on another, because this museum is a dick to its customers, I suppose.
And art museums are always confusing as hell to walk around because every wall looks the same because they're meant to just hold stuff, not actually be walls.
Yeah. Thankfully, when you check a treasure chest, it's permanently marked on your map until you open it. So if you see a locked chest that you can't open, just walk up to it and check it, so that you can remember where it is. Actually, I think the map might mark it the moment you walk within a certain distance of it, but I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've recorded this.
I know for sure it doesn't with doors. Like, just because you see a door, it doesn't mark it as an X unless you try to open it.
Yeah, you try to open the door, and if it doesn't open, it will cross itself off. I like games where you map things as you go, to a certain extent. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of first-person corridor games like the Wizardry series, but when you have a second screen with a dedicated mapping function, something like Persona Q or Etrian Odyssey is pretty addictive when you get down to it. It's just that when you're playing a game like Wizardry or the original Phantasy Star, you wind up having to manually map on paper as you go. Otherwise, you're completely lost by the time you're halfway through.
It was one of my favorite things about Silent Hill. The Silent Hill franchise always had, like, X's on doors you couldn't open. They would highlight the save rooms when you reached them and stuff. So, like, it was so much easier to backtrack and find your bearings in the Silent Hill games.
Yeah, no kidding. But, you know, there's something really, really addictive about a game with a good mapping function within the game, where you actually have to make the map or make notes on the map yourself. A classic example, probably the classic example, is Ultima Underworld, which I think was the game that introduced, in a way, first-person RPGs of the Elder Scrolls type. It was one of the earliest, if not the earliest, and a lot of the technology went into games like, I think, Doom and Wolfenstein to a certain extent. But one of the most striking features I remember from when I played it, and yeah, I own it off good old games, it's the mapping function allows you to just take notes and mark down the locations of things as you go. And you don't have to draw the map, I don't think. I think the map draws in itself, and you're responsible for actually making sense of the map as it draws itself in. And it's really addictive, just, gaining a lay of the land and becoming a master of the environment. It's the same kind of high I'd say you get out of a good Resident Evil game, except, on a much larger scale.
I might be able to get the truth out of him if I accept his modeling offer.
Man, guys, we've seen more than enough of this guy. Well, I might be a bit biased because I have, extra knowledge of what's going on, but I guess I should be happy that these characters are taking it seriously enough that they have to be absolutely sure of what they're doing before they go and change someone's heart. But it's undermined by two things. One, it kind of hits the pacing in the knee at times, like now, where we have to actually go back and leave the palace before going back in. And another reason that it's not so good for the game is there's a certain internal inconsistency between the way the characters treat the major palaces, like Madarame here, and how they treat the people that they go into Mementos to trigger a change of heart in. And I get the sense that the change of hearts that the changes of heart that they trigger in Mementos aren't as drastic or all-encompassing as the ones that they trigger when they steal a treasure from a palace, because the desires that they're stealing aren't as fully formed yet, so it doesn't have as big an impact on the person they're changing. But at the same time, they're so casual about that. there's never a lot of discussion about whether or not they should change someone in Mementos. So I don't know. It's just a little bit of a narrative niggle that bothers me a little bit.
That's also partially from a gameplay perspective, where you want to have these side dungeons and have a reason for doing the side dungeons, but it's kind of hard to make it fully fleshed out compared to the rest when there's a very gamey concept to begin with.
Hold on a second. Someone is calling my phone.
Oh my
Like the phone on screen right now.
How fitting.
Someone in Alabama is calling my phone.
It's the appropriate ringtone for this commentary.
Yeah. I made a bunch of Persona 5 themes. My ringtones. My alarm theme is the intro theme to this game, which is appropriately titled "Wake Up."
Wake up, get out there.
That's the third call from that Alabama number that I've gotten today. Who the hell is it?
It's probably one of those. No, it's probably a ghosted number. Because I get those all the time, where it's...
Yeah, this is a prepaid number that I have right now, and I keep getting calls and messages that are clearly supposed to go to whoever had the number first. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of those ghost telemarketer numbers that fish off of actual numbers to make you think they're real
I ended up
ones.
losing my SIM card when I was in Japan, so when I got back to the States, I had to go get a new one, and ever since then, I've been getting, calls from weird numbers. I'm like, alright, whatever.
Yeah. Well, public service announcement. Tedric, whoever you are, please change the numbers associated with all of your stupid stuff. I'm getting some really embarrassing text messages lately, thanks to you. And yeah, that's the name that's attached to everything. Tedric. I have no idea who it is.
Sir Tedric! Come here, my liege.
Sounds like medieval version of Ted.
So we have a robot version of Ted, a second robot version of Ted, and
now Knight Ted.
And now we've got a Knight of the Round Table version of Ted.
I want to see the fan art for that.
This is interesting. Maybe Sir Tedric is the lost knight from Sonic and the Black Knight.
Well, he's like the only one of the group that actually likes that game, so.
Well, I kind of like it. It's just a bit brainless to really go back to.
I enjoy that game.
Yeah, Sonic and the Black Knight isn't terrible. It's just not very good. You know?
I like it, but speaking of Sonic, because this happened since the last part, if you got yourself a Persona 5, ringtone, are you going to get yourself the Persona 5 costume for Sonic in Sonic Forces?
I actually already pre-ordered the bonus edition of Sonic Forces since.
Yep. So we'll all get our personas in the game.
And true to form, not only did I get an employee discount on it because I work there, but the price for the bonus edition actually went down since I pre-ordered it, which happens with pre-orders. And when you pre-order on Amazon, what happens is if the price goes down after you pre-order, your pre-order price goes down to match it, and you will always get the lowest price that was in effect between your pre-order and when it ships. So I'm getting the game for about $31, which is
The
not
price
bad.
is also discounted when you have Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in some
somewhat.
cases.
Although I think that was in effect before I ordered it, and it was already about $40 when I initially ordered it. So,
It's not a bad price.
it isn't a bad price at all, no.
Still, Joker the Hedgehog has joined the Resistance this November.
They'll never see it go fast.
That sounds like a song someone would sing for a PC version if they were playing it at low specs and it couldn't hit 30 frames per second, so it was just an Adabat slideshow the whole time.
So, Karo, you've been gone this whole time in Japan, the place of Persona.
The place of Persona? Is that what Japan is to you now?
Yes, it is.
Fuck their cultural identity. They're the setting of the Persona series.
Speaking of which, the Shibuya screen you're seeing right now, oh my god, like, when I saw that, I cried in the station. I was like, oh my gosh.
I couldn't believe how, accurate the pictures you were showing me were.
It was amazing. Oh my god. Like, every single tiny thing down to,
Hey,
I guess, there are these green cars outside, but everything down to that was, so accurate. I was like, wow, Atlas did a really good job scouting, Tokyo.
I wouldn't be surprised if, sense on how accurate they always are whenever they do something like that, if we don't have more or less all of the Tokyo metropolitan area represented, completely mapped out in some animated form.
For the most part, they hit a lot of the important places.
Yeah. Well, the developmental backstory of this game is that they were originally going to be making a globe-trotting backpacking adventure, but when earthquakes and stuff happened in Japan, they decided to shift focus to a story that was primarily about their own country. So we might see that globe-trotting backpacking adventure again in the future, but it is not now that we are getting it. And they really put their heart and soul into making a game that focused on issues within their own country, but unfortunately the relatively late shift in what they were trying to do meant that they didn't have as much time to finish the game as they would have allowed themselves otherwise. So there are some places where the polish isn't quite as good. I'm only starting to see that now, later on, because I didn't notice while I was playing it initially. And that's probably the important thing. The entire package is high quality enough that it doesn't really bother you as much when you hit one of the flaws, but they're there.
I thought
So,
it would just be you coming, Takamaki-san.
wouldn't you get nervous too if it was just the two of us?
We're here to keep you, so don't try anything later.
I'm sorry, just, practically smash cutting to this scene always
I
makes
love
me
those
laugh.
parts.
I assure you, I have no interest in the opposite sex.
Gay.
To clarify, Yusuke isn't uninterested in women. I mean, he clearly has that interest, and it's hinted at certain points. He's just really disconnected when it comes to his artwork.
Kitagawa-kun?
Yes, that's right, Yusuke. Just wave your paintbrush vaguely in front of that easel. Art will happen eventually. It's like me when I'm sitting down trying to write something. Jesus Christ.
This isn't what we planned. We were gonna catch him off guard and make him spill his beans, weren't we?
How were we supposed to know this was gonna happen?
He's clocked out for the evening, guys. Just sit tight and wait for him to come back from lunch.
Perhaps I should try going outside this room.
Yeah, our pro tags are just gonna sit here.
Who do you think you're talking to?
Well, Morgana knows what's up.
I'm going to scout around.
Wander around. Do something interesting with your time. This winds up being useful because partway through the dungeon we're going to run into a barrier that prevents us from progressing further, and we're going to have to come back to Madarame's house in order to open up that barrier. Now, unlike the treasure thing, they actually give you a tutorial message before the dungeon properly starts that tells you about barriers that you're going to have to pass. So you know ahead of time that there's going to be something in the dungeon that blocks your progress, in which you're going to have to spend an extra day getting past. So when you go into the dungeon, if you're using your head, you know to get as far in as possible on that first day and possibly hit that barrier in your first attempt. Not everyone's going to do that, but it's something that you have enough information to think of doing.
Another reason for seeing you today. We needed to talk to you.
It's about those rumors regarding your sensei.
Straight to the point, eh?
That painting.
Yeah, they wanted to butter him up first, but that plan fell through.
Right?
That's...
I knew it.
Now, one thing I will say about Yusuke is that the crap he pulls in this scene is more than a little scummy, and if he weren't so goddamn disconnected and oblivious, I'd almost think that was on purpose. But, no. He's just stupid. So, yeah. He's also backed into a corner, because he needs to have a painting done by the end of the event that's currently happening. The implied consequence of this whole section of the game is that Yusuke is so desperate at this point that if he fails to produce some artwork that will please Madarame by that deadline, he's going to kill himself. Which is what Nakanohara believes, at least. And it's that motivation that drives An and the others to work so hard to save him, and that's the main reason why the deadline exists. At least for the first half of it.
Is that actually referenced in the game over?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's just an implication. The game overs for the different deadlines are fairly unique, but they mostly concern themselves with whatever happens to the main character at that point. So it's usually the police showing up at the cafe talking about something that happened and why they're there.
Yeah. The only one I remember getting a big buzz was the Kaneshiro one that's after Madarame, just because it's implied that the Mafia guys did things to Makoto, and it's a little dark when you think about it like that. Like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Calm down, okay?
Yeah, Kaneshiro. Kaneshiro was set up as a really dangerous target to go after, and they had to acknowledge that in some form or fashion. I've never seen any of the game overs, though, because I'm too used to playing Persona at this point. I always get everything done well ahead of the deadline, so...
Yeah, I think it was just morbid curiosity, like someone purposefully failed it so he could upload it to YouTube or something, but...
Yeah, every Persona game has those. Like, every scene in the game, especially the ones that have different options that could happen, or which players won't often encounter on their first playthrough, are in the game. Those videos get a lot of views because, well, people are curious, but these are long games. People aren't just gonna go back and replay the whole thing just to see all the optional stuff. So...
I want to see how Yu reacts to Risei Kujikawa's death. You know, click the Persona 4 Game Over video.
Yes, that's what nude means.
Is out during the afternoon while the art exhibit is on, so I can use this place freely. I should buy more art supplies.
This is going to take a lot of paint.
Of course. I'm willing to wait. I'll make time according to your plan.
Now, if it were anyone less oblivious than Yusuke, this would have been kind of an unsettling situation. But because Yusuke is so disconnected, they were actually able to play this off pretty effectively for laughs.
No, we are not done talking here.
But
Well, as he said, he has no interest in the opposite sex.
What should we do?
yeah, but I could forgive someone for being thrown off on their first playthrough by this, because you don't get to see as much of Yusuke's quirks beforehand. I've played this game like 1.5 times at this point. I haven't finished my second playthrough because, well, you're watching it. But I remember Yusuke's dialogue. It is a gift from above, and once you've heard it, once you've read it, you'll never be able to take Yusuke seriously again. Like, he's in a dark situation at this point in the story, but as a character, he's pretty whimsical.
Full nudity? Lady Yon's
Morgana's coming around.
You know, you won't have to worry about that if we make Madarame confess before the exhibit ends.
But Kitagawa-kun thinks he owes his life to him. Is there a need to make Madarame confess? Then, Lady On, you're
Alright, so...
I know many of the people playing this game would be fine with her bearing it all. Oh, yeah.
Madarame's
I'm sure you can find many images on the internet of An bearing it all.
parents.
True, it is the internet after all.
No surprises.
Day one in like 2013 that happened.
Can we not?
Fine.
You can't leave it be because you've endured a lot yourself with Kamoshida.
You know, now that I think about it, though, I am slightly confused about something about this whole setup. I mean, prior to this point, not when Yusuke brought up the nudes thing. But I'm curious. Anna's a magazine model, so why was she so nervous about being a model for art? Was she just not sure how it would go, or was it that she was nervous about doing it for someone in private? I'm a little confused on that point, because it seems like she's pretty damn comfortable with modeling for photos.
Unless he submits a new piece. Maybe that's going to be
Well, I don't think she's modeling in that way for her job rather than what Yosuke is actually asking
It's
her to
modeling
do.
for an unusual scenario.
Yeah, I'm not talking about what Yusuke's asking for now, but initially he only asked for her to model for a painting in a really non-specific way, to the point where she was just sitting on a chair, looking bored the whole time, when she actually went in and did it. But it was something that made her instantly nervous, after it was asked. So, I don't know, it's just interesting to think about. Like, maybe she doesn't take magazine modeling as seriously as she does art modeling, so it got her a bit of stage fright.
Different level of prestige, and do we know what kind of modeling she does as far as like magazines and stuff go?
Fashion modeling, it comes up in her in her social
Well, yeah, no,
media.
I know fashion modeling, but I mean, like what kind of fashion, like dresses or school uniforms or casual clothes and stuff, versus
Going by what she was wearing for the photo shoots, it just seems to be general, regular ass fashion modeling like you'd see in any random teen magazine.
yeah. So that's very different than being like, say, a Victoria's Secret model or something.
Yeah.
Also, just kind of taking aback that, like, this other teenage high school student's like, alright, I won't do anything, but you're gonna pose nude for me. And it's like, whoa!
Can I just say, for such an ultimately insignificant character, they really went out of their way to introduce Oya early. Like, we're not going to be able to start a confidant with Oya until significantly later. I think it might be around Kanashiro's part of the game, but it could possibly be after that. She's the devil confidant, and she's a reporter. And the deal you strike with her involves her writing articles that spread the word about the Phantom Thieves. So...
Tell me, Miss Reporter, do you know Clark Kent of the Daily Planet?
Yeah. Well, Oya is less a mild-mannered reporter and more,
She's Lois Lane.
Yeah, she's blackout drunk Lois Lane. She's actually not that interesting on her own. Her character is a bit flat. Like, she's got some personality to her, but there's not a whole lot to her story until like way toward the end of her confidant, where you actually find out what she's been doing the whole time. But she has one of the best side characters in the game attached to her. This bartender. What's her name? Lala. Lala, I think that's her name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lala Chan.
Lala Chan is fun. I like Lala Chan. Also, it's one of the weirdest part-time jobs that you can work. You can be a waiter at that bar. Why Lala Chan is willing to let a high school student work that job, it's kind of brushed past. But it is a job that you have to work for a side quest at one point, so you're going to wind up doing it, probably. It's an interesting job, though, because different customers will talk to you when you go into work, and you have to pick dialogue options that help them out. You're supposed to be the, understanding bartender who works part-time as a therapist, that kind of character. So you have to play that role.
Yeah, because as we all know, bartenders have their minors in psychology.
Reminds me of this dialogue option in Mass Effect 2, where you can ask a bartender for information, a Turian bartender, and he just says, "I serve drinks. If you want news, watch the television." And then he says, "I don't know why humans always ask me that."
The barkeep knows and hears all. Always a nice little subversion, though.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you can actually ask a human bartender in the first game for that kind of thing, and he's totally obliging. Like, it's perfectly normal for human bartenders to do that sort of thing. But Turian bartenders, nope. And the news is still talking about Kamoshida. Would the news stick with this one topic for this long in the real world? I don't know.
With the slow news week, I guess.
What's the news like in Japan?
I was just gonna say, it's really, really slow, because Tokyo is really safe in general, so, like, when I would flip on the news every morning before going to work, it would just be, like, news about what was going on in the city. Like, oh, there's a festival, or, oh, this cat got rescued from a tree. There's not much going on.
Oh, okay. It's like that even in the city over there? That's interesting. I bought that in Persona 4 when the news was slow and boring in Inaba, because it's this backwater country town in the mountains with like the murders were like the only interesting thing that had happened there. So
who wants to talk about murders? Yay!
Is there anything else to talk about this week? No? Have at it, Adachi.
Actually, not all that different from Canada, honestly. When I check out Canadian news, most of the time it's just, oh, they just had this fun little festival over here, and oh, this nice old lady got a ticket at the bingo, and then she won. I
guess because the news in America has so many states to draw interesting shit from, it's got a lot of fallback material at any given time of year.
So Clement is like the only news station that's actually constantly updating for like the hockey station during hockey season.
Well, there's either Global or CTV, so pick your poison.
Now, I'm slightly miffed at Mishima for actually telling Nakanohara to approach the Phantom Thief leader in person, because that seems really goddamn reckless of the guy, and my trust in him has decreased slightly. But it works out in the end, because Nakanohara winds up being the proof that they need that Madarame is up to no good. The definitive proof, a victim who steps forward and asks for help, and it is this that allows the Phantom Thieves to move forward with a clear conscience about stealing the treasure from Madarame's palace. So, yeah, thanks, Nakanohara. I'll leave, as thanks, I'll pay for you to go to the barber and get a better haircut. No? Well, I mean, you wouldn't have to be a stalker if you had a better haircut. You look pretty good and reliable otherwise, but the bowl cut just kind of... I mean, it seriously looks like you take a bowl and put it on your head and cut your own hair every month. I like how On is talking about his shadow and stuff, it's implied that she's whispering, but it's only implied. So it just kind of looks like Nakanohara ignored the incomprehensible thing she just said and kept talking. So... it's a bit of a presentation guff. They could have,
have her, like, lean into Ryuji or something.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They could have animated that a little better. This is one of the scenes where the animations are pretty clearly stock and generic scenes, whereas other scenes have really intricate, smoothly animated mocap things that are only ever used once. What's interesting to me is that they gave Nakanohara a voice in his previous scenes, but didn't bother bringing it back for this really long expositionary scene. So... seems like a waste to me.
Again, I just think the pacing in Persona 5 could always just be like, is this scene necessary? Can we just, like, skip it, you know?
Like, you probably could have added this to his side quest before the palace even starts. Like, he mentions, like, he's super depressed about something, and that kind of leads into more Madarame talk before he leaves.
Yeah, maybe. I understand why it falls together the way it does. I just think it could be, it could roll along a little at a better clip. When I think about it, Persona 5 doesn't use a whole lot more in-game calendar time than the previous games do, but there's a lot more meat to the scenes that happen. Like when Persona 4 does this kind of thing, where there are days where you're not allowed to do stuff. It's usually for some kooky, fun friendship time team event that like summer camp for school, where Mystery Food X gets concocted by Yukiko and everyone passes out because it's so horrible, that kind of thing. Whereas for Persona 5, it's almost exclusively dedicated to advancing the story, which is good in its own way, but also doesn't give you a whole lot of time to breathe. And, you know, it's more... it feels better when Persona 4 does that kind of thing, compared to here, because that is your cooldown period to get away from the plot for a little while and just, you know, enjoy some laid-back country friendship time with the characters. It's fluff time, essentially, but here it's all serious business. You're not allowed that fluff time, which is effective in a way. It fits the grim, somewhat hectic city life pace of this game, but at the same time, it can get a bit exhausting at times. And then you wind up taking it out on the first 10 shadows you see in the dungeon, and all is right with the world again.
Yeah, they're just random monsters walking about.
Perfect punching bags. Wow, is this guy still talking?
Yep.
Yep, he is.
I've been watching Nakanohara's animated lips flap quite a bit. I do like that they animated the faces this time.
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Hey, hey.
Yeah, it's something that they started doing with the Persona 4 Arena games, and they do it to a certain extent in Dancing All Night as well, I think, because they use the same storytelling style in that game. But it's cool to see it come back in this game. It gives the text box dialogue a bit more of a dynamic feeling, along with these stylized, like, cut-in shots of the characters and all. Anything is better than Persona 3 Portable, though. I love that version of the game from a gameplay point of view, but goddamn, the storytelling is so flat.
We need a definitive version, Atlas.
Okay.
Persona 3 FES Portable, not portable.
Super Ultra Persona 3.
Persona 3 FESP.
FESP.
Yeah, FES plus portable, FESP.
Okay.
Persona 3 FESP Turbo.
Welcome to our new house.
EX plus alpha.
HD.
Or, you know, they could replace the F with a P and call it Persona 3 PEZ.
We'll pay dearly
Oh
for your
well,
services
that only works with a Z. Damn it.
All the characters are just Pez Dispenser's version of themselves. just hopping around in the game.
Oh, don't give them ideas. That's what Persona Q2 will end up being. Ugh.
After that, we send our calling card. Once the treasure has materialized,
All right.
we
So let's do it!
we can finally go into the goddamn dungeon.
Woohoo!
Which is why I'm going to not do that, and I'm instead going to run around the town running random errands and trying to make lock picks.
Yep. Gotta go it. Foolish to go in unprepared.
Or maybe he's just super salty from
Yep.
all those rumors that have been spreading about him.
Then his palace being so crazy had nothing to do with us?
And I've been playing Shadow Warrior lately. I was about to say it's dangerous to go alone, but my brain flashed back to Shadow Warrior the moment that it hit, the moment that a thought hit my brain, and it's just this line that Lo Wang says the moment you find your first handgun. He finds it in the hand of a dead guy and says to the corpse, "What's that? You want me to take this? Well, I guess it's dangerous to go alone."
Oh yeah, you go completely nuts.
Yeah, everyone likes to reference the classic one-liners.
Yeah, but it's a line that you aren't expecting when you go into the game blind, because you already have a sword. You already have a sword, so you don't expect someone to say that when they pick up a gun to go with the sword.
Now listen here. We can't
I do recommend Shadow Warrior 2013. It's a fantastic first-person shooter, and the sword itself is actually really fun to use.
Okay.
Okay, into the dungeon.
I forgot you named the group BrainScratch.
Forgot we
I was like,
named
whoa.
it that.
Yeah. It's the first job for us. Actually, we've been doing this for about 8 years. 8.5 years now.
Yeah.
Mission start.
Yep. Although we've got a couple tutorial messages dogpiling us at the start of this one. Yup. Palace obstacles that are impassable, yada yada yada.
Yep.
Now, I thought for a moment that I might have a request that I hadn't gone and talked to them about yet, but turns out I don't, so let's go. That's all for today? I like the look on his face when he says that, when you call them over and then don't go into a dungeon. It's like, wait, what did you call us all over here for? Were you just lonely? Anyway, this is also a day where Mishima texts you and gives you a message about the next request. This is a slightly unique request in that you have to go and find out the person's name yourself. So you actually have to go find a person who knows that at the school.
Hey, do you know about the bully person? No. Do you know about the bully person? No.
Yeah. Well, there are quite a few requests like this in the game, but this one is relatively easy because you don't have to spend extra time working a part-time job to get the information you need, which is a time-consuming part of certain other side quests. But you actually do have to go back to school and search around for someone who can give you that information before you can go into Mementos and deal with the quest. I recommend doing as much of these info gathering side quest things as you can whenever they appear, so that you have the information ready the next time you go into Mementos naturally.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can make the most of your calendar time. I don't think getting the information on the bully takes a time slot, but the ones that require you to work part-time jobs definitely do.
Yeah. I'm really glad that Persona 5 doesn't have any mandatory information collection things like in Persona 4. Like, every time you needed to get to the next dungeon, you always had to go asking around about, hey, do you know Rise? Hey, do you know Naoto? And you just... And, like, some things wouldn't happen until, like, the next day. Like, oh, the police officer doesn't show up here until Tuesday, so you'll have to come back tomorrow. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, things get pretty goddamn annoying at times. And then, at the end, you actually have to choose the culprit out of a list of, like, every character in the games.
I know who it is. It's Red Herring.
But yeah.
Why are you selling cosmic undies?
You should hold on to those.
For some reason, the cosmic undies help you resist confusion. I don't know, that seems like a very confusing piece
I guess being in the cosmos makes you feel less confused, which, when you think about
Once you see the cosmos, you know everything. You understand how the world works now.
I don't know, wearing that as armor seems like something that would inflict confusion rather than resisting it. But, yeah. Anyway, let's go to the school and see if we can find some information about this bully. I'm sure nothing interesting will happen, so you can all just twiddle your thumbs for the rest of the part. We're just going to be walking around the school talking to NPCs. It's the most boring part of any RPG Let's Play, to be honest. I mean, there's nothing's going to happen. I mean, like, what? It begins!
Does it now?
So adorable.
So I don't think at this point that she's actually at the point of following you around town. I think at any point after you see that scene where she's asking around the school about you, she'll follow you around this floor of the school only. Because I wasn't able to get her to appear anywhere else while I was playing. But she is down here on the first floor, so she trails you around this area. And just has a few things to say when you talk to her. But, as the game progresses from this point, she starts dogging you around the field maps a lot more stalkerishly, and
Why do I have a feeling that someone's trying to sell me something?
Anyway, the fun thing about Makoto following you around, I didn't notice it during my first playthrough, but I did talk to Makoto around the town a couple of times while I was playing. I didn't notice she was following me, but I talked to her while she was doing it. That made me feel stupid when I realized it. Oh yeah, you can always talk to the newspaper club member at various points in the game to find out different things about what was happening. I thought the newspaper club member might actually be the person to tell me what I wanted to know, but it turns out I was mistaken. And I actually forgot who I'm supposed to talk to get this information. So I'm actually going to figure that out off screen. We're not going to find this information this part. Sorry,
No.
people.
Oh
no. Man, like 2/3 of Japan's population in this game have the frickin' surgical masks on. Is that accurate to real life, Carolina? Can you tell me that?
Yeah, the reason why they wear the surgical masks is because it's to prevent spreading any colds or minor illnesses. I was teaching a student for a couple weeks, and she had a surgical mask on, and she only took it off whenever she had to give an important speech to the class.
Speaking of infections and the like, it looks like someone's caught the love bug. We have ourselves a creeper. I think this is actually related to a later side quest in the game, which is interesting, because I don't think you can actually get this side quest until months in the future, but the yandere stalker here is established, if you look around the school for her, as early as now.
Yeah, too bad we can't play Yandere Simulator.
I feel like every video game with a school setting has that exact kind of trope.
But
There's always one character spying on another one, just like, I can't go up to them, I'm just gonna stare at them from afar.
Yeah, there were NPCs like that in both of the previous Persona games.
But I'm talking like even beyond Persona, like I'll see
Sonic
it in-
Adventure?
Yeah.
Sonic Adventure.
The burger man.
The girl outside the burger shop?
Yeah. They really love that trope.
I wanted to get a look at the magazine or comic book that she's reading. This looks like a distinctly not Makoto thing for her to be reading. What is up with that?
It's probably just a magazine.
It's really thick for a magazine.
Manga magazine, maybe?
Can you picture Makoto reading manga?
It's part of her amazing disguise. She's trying to blend in.
Look like one of the normal people.
By acting blatantly out of character? Okay.
She's. No one ever said she was good at it.
I think the bystanders might be more suspicious of her than I am.
She'd be better off reading a book by sitting down, but she's walking around with it, so I don't know.
Walking around a crowded school with it doesn't seem like a smart idea to me.
With it in front of her
Oops.
face, so she might run into people.